In this video, we're going to understand, is immigration the key to economic growth? Why Western countries favor immigration? Recently, you must have seen in the news about Canadian immigration policy. Then United States also changes the visa norms pretty frequently. The same thing we get to see in European Union countries as well. So overall, we will try to understand what are the positive and negative impact of immigration, why countries invite immigrants, and what does it lead to. Alright then, let's begin. Recently, you must have heard in the news that Canada's Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship, Sean Fraser, has said Canada is increasing its intake of immigrants into the country to as many as 475,000 by 2024. So first, we will try to understand what is the meaning of immigration and emigration. So immigration means people coming from other countries into your country. For example, I'm an Indian. If people come from other countries to India, they are called as immigrants. And emigration means when someone from your country moves to another country. Emigrate means to leave one location, such as one's native country or region, to live in another place. Immigrate means someone from outside moves into a non-native country or region to live. To make it more easier, just look at the spelling of the word immigrate. The letter I in immigrate means incoming. Similarly, the letter E of emigrate means exit. So now that you have understood the difference between immigration and emigration, we will now try to understand what is the basic idea behind immigration. Why people move to other country, state or region. Why some countries invite immigrants. If I have to answer this question in just 2 words, that would be economic growth. Now let me elaborate on this. See, ultimately the primary goal behind inviting immigrants is to keep the economic engines of a country running. The whole concept behind immigration policy is to never let the economic growth stop. If I have to give an example to make you understand this, just look at the banks. Why do you think bank gives loan? They give loan to people so that people can obediently pay monthly installments for a given period of time in order to keep that bank running in business. Banks are not there to fulfill your dream. They just try to make it look that way. All they care about is whether or not you will pay them principal amount plus interest for an agreed period of time. Bank only finances you so that you keep them in business. Now similarly, immigration policy is also based on the concept of never-ending growth. To keep the economy running, you need human resource, and that too low-cost, skilled human resource. Immigration policies are not at all designed to fill up empty lands. It's not like some countries feeling lonely, hence, they decided to invite some people from outside, come and share your life with us, and we will all live happily. It's not like that. Although they try to sell it and market it that way, in order to attract. But it is not the case. So always remember, the primary goal behind inviting immigrants is to keep the economic engines of a country running. United States, Canada and Western European countries, today wherever they are, it is because of immigrants. From farming, fishing to manufacturing, healthcare, transportation sector, these countries rely on immigrants. Since last 2 years, because of the pandemic, almost every country's economy has been badly hit. Inflation is high, so naturally the next step is economic recovery. Keeping that in mind, Canada has increased its intake of immigrants. And now we will try to understand what are the effects of immigration. In every debate, there is a proposition team and an opposition team. Likewise, even in this topic, there are arguments that support the idea of immigration, and then there are arguments that oppose the idea of immigration. I'll place them side by side and we'll try to understand every point. On your left hand side, you have the proposition, and on your right hand side, you have the opposition arguments. People who are in support of immigration, they tend to have views such as better economic opportunity, which leads to better quality of life. If you see, this point is very true. Because it is not related to a particular country, people have been moving from one village to another, from villages to towns, from smaller towns to bigger towns, and from bigger towns to cities, for pursuing better economic opportunities and quality of life. Likewise, people who are against immigration, they tend to have views such as, if more and more people from outside come to a place, then it leads to cultural change or assimilation. It also creates a huge market for low-skilled laborers. And then the native workers have this feeling that immigrants are going to take over their jobs. When there are too many people available for a single job, and then there is increase in labor supply from foreign-born competitors, then naturally the wages will decrease for the native-born worker. And this is actually true in low-skilled labor activities like childcare, food preparation, house cleaning, repair and construction. So basically, immigrants lower the cost of some labor activities. So on one hand, you have people who hope for a better living when moving to a new place. There is nothing wrong in that. People have all sorts of hopes. But at the same time, it also puts the native worker at a tight spot. So whenever there is any immigration debate, these are the most common arguments for the native population. Opposition to immigration has become a significant political issue in many countries. The native population opposes immigration because they fear they may lose their sense of belonging to their own nation, which is represented by distinct traditions, culture, language and politics. Then it is also believed that immigrants may isolate themselves in their own communities, forming self-organized communities, where they live according to their own culture. Sooner or later, that gets reflected in politics when the immigrant population increases. Because you know this, in politics, demography matters. Now, a counter-argument is given in favor of immigration. It is said that high-skilled immigration has brought more innovation, entrepreneurship, and technological change. And that brings a positive impact on the wages and employment of natives. Even this statement is true. You have to understand this. When we say immigrants, it consists of different range of people. Not all have the same level of skill set. That is why we differentiate labor force in terms of unskilled, semi-skilled and skilled labor. Skilled labor refers to work that requires a certain amount of training or skills. This type of work is seen in electricians, administrative assistants, doctors, plumbers and more. Skilled labor workers are either blue collar or white collar. These workers need to have a set of specialized skills to perform their job duties effectively. Then unskilled labor refers to work that does not require any specialization of certain set of skills or formal education. Some examples of unskilled labor include cooking, housekeeping, cashiers, grocery clerks, farmers, etc. And then semi-skilled labor refers to work that is of general routine nature. It requires very minimum level of education. Some examples are truck drivers, retail salespersons, bartenders, flight attendants, taxi drivers, waiters, security guards, customer service representatives, or entry-level administrative assistants. Now, an immigrant can be part of any of these categories. High-skilled immigrants are definitely an asset for any country. And it is also true that they brought more innovation, entrepreneurship, and technological change. But then you have to realize that any immigrant, irrespective of what their skill set is, has to spend a certain amount of time in a new place in order to understand the ecosystem, then grow, and finally few of them might end up becoming entrepreneur or bring a major change. It does not happen overnight or in few years. It takes decades. It's a long-term effect of migration. But saying that highly skilled immigrants can bring a positive impact on the wages and employment of native workers is an oversimplified argument. I'm not saying that this argument is wrong. I'm saying it is not that simple. Of course, an immigrant can become really successful and possibly they may even end up creating jobs, which will certainly benefit the native workers. But you have to understand that this is a long-term effect of immigration. In short term, low-skilled native-born workers face a depression in their wages because of the increase in labor supply from foreign-born competitors. The next argument that people give in favor of immigration is, immigrants tend to be younger than the population of their receiving country. That means immigrants can be a replacement for the low fertility rate and the rising age of the Western population, which even the Western government recognizes and admits. Now this point becomes the main selling point of all the Western government. All these Western countries need more of young people. Why? That's because more young immigrants would not only grow the economy, but also grow the working age population, leading to a more productive and prosperous economy. The government of Western countries are aware of this. They know that young immigrants will keep the size of their country's labor force from shrinking. And that way, basically the immigrants can take the load of their country's debt. If you look at Canada, United States and European countries, they have huge national debt. Who do you think have to pay the national debt of a country? It's the citizen as well as the people who work there and live there. Any kind of national debt has to be socialized among the general public, more specifically on the working population. Suppose a certain percentage of native worker retires every year. That would require more new workers to stay in the workforce so that they can continue paying taxes, and with that tax money, pension and healthcare can be supported. Now, if the working population of Canada or United States or any European country is not enough to support old retired population, then that will rapidly deplete social security funds of these countries, leaving older Americans, Canadians and Europeans unable to access the support they invested in their whole careers. So to support their healthcare and pension funds, these countries desperately need immigrants, and that too young immigrants, so that they can take the load of the so-called developed countries' national debt. So I will place this point on the positive section, that is on the left-hand side of the immigration debate. So if you tell this point to the older people of these countries, they will be in full support of the immigration debate. However, on the flip side, these older people also have children, who will have to face a tough competition in the job market from a foreign-born competitor. Large inflow of immigrants will certainly increase the population of a particular place. Large inflow of people reduces the per capita size of land of the native country. Immigrants will soon start owning houses, social security benefits, healthcare, etc. And that will put higher burden on social welfare systems, health systems, housing and public schools. And then over a period of time, instead of focusing on the well-being of native people and their health, the policy of mass immigration in these Western countries will create a market for low-cost housing, banks and low-cost labor employers. And that will create a perfect engine of inequality. So there are many such concerns associated with immigration. However, on the other side, people who leave their country, they are called emigrants. Emigrate means to leave one location such as one's native country or region to live in another. Large-scale immigration leads to a situation where a country loses its best workers. For example, skilled workers in developing countries such as India gets attracted by relatively better pay and working conditions in developed countries such as the United States, Canada and Western Europe. That leads to brain drain, and it has its own negative side effects. Of course, immigrants send money to their family back in their home country. It's called remittance. Again, remittance has its own positive and negative impacts on a country's growth. That's a topic of another video. Anyhow, so every country has to properly and diligently evaluate as to how much of immigrants to let in. You have to be careful and not disturb the balance. Think of it this way. Suppose you stay in this place, you are used to the culture and emotion of this place. Suddenly your place gets flooded with immigrants from another place who have complete different culture and practices. At the same time, there will be rise in anti-immigrant sentiments, and it is happening in the Western countries. It is not a hidden thing anymore. As a government, you need to avoid that. Of course, politics is played well when there is a divide and rule situation, but the consequences at the most extreme level may result in racial tensions and discrimination. Similarly, the source countries have to evaluate their action plans and do everything possible in terms of development to keep their human resource intact. Plus, it is common sense. If the home country provides everything, then there is no need to migrate or relocate. Because the fact of the matter is migration is costly and does not necessarily lead to immediate improvement in living standards. But still, large number of people migrate every year from Asian countries to Western countries for material gain. And surprisingly, you also have to look at another angle. There are many people and families from Western countries migrating to India in search of spirituality and not for material or economic gains. This is also a unique perspective when it comes to studying the immigration debate. If you see, the Western countries are marketing and promoting heavily to attract people from different countries, majorly from Asian countries. They are saying, come here, you can have a good life, work here, have a good lifestyle, American dream, Canadian dream, European dream. Everything is being commercially sold with proper government policies. And then we also get to see the opposite. Foreign citizens completely abandoning those fast-moving lifestyle and coming to India for spiritual life. And India is not even promoting or doing any marketing. Foreigners are coming to India because they are fed up of chasing the American dream, the Canadian dream, the European dream. Many realize that you only have one life and you don't need to get stuck in the carrot and stick policy. Presently, major beneficiaries of the Canadian immigration policy will be Indians because India is the single largest source country for immigrants to Canada. So each year, many Indians are moving to Western countries in search of better economic opportunities. Similarly, each year, many foreigners are migrating to India in search of spiritual life. So anyhow, Western countries' immigration policy continues to be based on the concept of never-ending economic growth. Perpetual economic growth is neither possible nor desirable. As you know, natural resources are limited. And secondly, when you look at the word growth, especially in the context of wealthy nations, it is already causing more problem than it solves. I hope you found this video informative. Thank you for watching it.